part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Could be up to the offensive line. No, Prince's going to throw for it. Got to get it off. They go for the ball game. Touchdown! Touchdown! Michael Jenkins! Holy Buckeye!
Tebow straight ahead into the end zone, and the Gators have put this one on ice.
Hello, and welcome to the Tim and Shipe Show. This is a college football podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We're part of the Press Play Podcast Network, and we are going to be talking about college football and everything that happened. This is kind of a reaction show to the college football playoff rankings that happened just moments ago, for us at least. For you all, you probably had a little bit of time to soak it in, but we're going to talk about it anyway and give our takes. Tim Jones, what's going on, brother?
Hey, man, another day closer to the end of the season. Am I right?
Oh, man, 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks of the regular season. Then we're in conference championship week. So, yeah, a lot to be excited about, especially if you're a Buckeye fan, and a lot to look forward to in the offseason or in the bowl, right? You're officially bowl eligible?
I mean,
for the Gators?
Borderline. It's not, we're not in a good place. I guess just put it that way.
Yeah, you might be in one of those bowls that everyone's like, oh, what am I going to watch? The Aunt Jemima, syrup bowl? Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. That's not, you can't say Aunt Jemima anymore, though.
What?
They canceled it. It's not even a thing anymore.
Aunt Jemima's, well, I don't have to pretend it never existed.
Sorry, man. You gotta find a new term.
The Redenbacher popcorn bowl.
Much better. Thank you.
Better? There we go.
I'm much less offended now. Thank you.
All right. Anyway, so we have the reactions coming up to the top 25, really, the top 7. We'll talk about it. But anyway, let's talk Ohio State football. Tim Jones, did you watch the game?
I did watch actually most of it, believe it or not. For once, I actually watched most of the Buckeye game. Yeah. They actually put it at a different time slot, which hasn't been happening a lot this year. So I was able to watch a pretty good amount of it.
Yeah. What first impressions?
Ohio State's pretty good. The receivers aren't bad. Pretty good. Yeah.
Pretty good.
The one guy breaking records of receiving and catching passes, and their offense is pretty impressive. Yeah.
We have 3 really good wide receivers.
Yeah.
To think that really our slot wide receiver right now looks like our number 1 wide receiver in Jackson Smith and Jigba, to where,
incredible player.
Just, he is something special. And, just Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, they're just machines out there. They get open. They find ways to get open. Olave didn't have a great game, but, man, he kept fighting. And I love the fire of Jackson Smith and Jigba. Did you see that where he got that personal foul penalty?
Yeah.
Where I loved that. I just like that. If you didn't see it, there was a Purdue player who was jawing to C.J. Stroud, Ohio State's quarterback, and he was just looking at him, jawing, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Jackson Smith and Jigba just stands right in front of him and gets in his face and is protecting his quarterback. And it was just he's just a gritty guy. And he is fiery, man. He's so fun to watch. So, yeah, really good offense. Do we stand a chance against the Georgia defense if Buckeye offense goes head-to-head with Georgia? That's the question right now that everyone wants answered.
Yeah, I think the question is less that, more so can Ohio State's defense put Georgia in a bad position to score points. And I think that's really going to be the interesting side of the ball.
I like our defense better than I like their offense. And so, but I don't know if I like our offense better than I like Georgia's defense.
Well, I think that the weakness, which is a funny way of saying that, because they're a very, very good team. They don't have a lot of weaknesses, but the weakest piece of their defense, I think, is their secondary. So as long as you're able to get those receivers open and give the quarterback enough time to throw, that's where you have a chance, I think.
Yeah, I would love to see it. Especially, it seems like we're hitting our stride. I hope that this doesn't belong in the overreactions, because it was just 1 week ago we, only beat Nebraska by 9. So, I hope this isn't an overreaction, but it really feels like Ohio State is clicking at all cylinders and really hitting their stride right now.
Yeah, well, and I would caution this was their last like kind of warm up game before the next 2 weeks are going to be their real big test before the conference championship. So they have to obviously win out. They can't afford to stumble in either of these games because that'll put them in a really bad situation where they need help, right? So they have to hope for the best here, have to play their best games against these Michigan State and Michigan, get in the conference championship, and hope they don't peak too soon.
Yeah. So if you were to rank it 1 out of 10, Tim, for Ohio State here, 10 being 1,000%, you believe that they're going to be the college football playoff champions. That's a 10. Okay. They're going to win it all this year. And a 1 being that they lose the rest of their games. Okay. Where would you put Ohio State?
Right now, I put them on a 7.
7.
And I think the 7's probably a little bit low. But the only reason I put them at that is because they are playing teams who have been pretty good this year. But I also think that they've shown both of those teams have shown flaws in the last few weeks where I think they're beatable. I think that they've made bad impressions for the college football playoff committee and the fans, where I think they both have shown some weaknesses. They both have a loss now. And, they've shown some areas where they can be beaten. I think Michigan State against Ohio State's going to obviously focus in on the run, saying you're not going to beat us with your running back. And I think that's going to be the expectation is Ohio State is, going to play that way. And so I think that while there's a chance because these teams are good, I still think Ohio State is a huge, huge chance of winning both of those games and then going to the conference championship. I don't see any competition. It seems like that West bracket is pretty weak in the Big Ten. So once they get through this Michigan State, Michigan matchup, then I think that at that point it's over. They're in the playoff.
Wisconsin is trending up as far as what they're how they're performing on the field. They started rough, but they're trending up. So we have Michigan State and Michigan coming up in the next 2 weeks. So you mentioned that you think they're faltering a little bit, that they're slowing down, their momentum is. And I just had a thought. I think that if you are a run-heavy team, like both of Michigan State and Michigan are this year, I think that is a very hard system to sustain throughout the year. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think you take a lot of hits, you take a lot of beatings, your running backs wear down, your offensive linemen wear down, and that is a really unsustainable offensive strategy, I think. If you're just so heavy on the run, it's going to slow you down as the year go on. You're going to get that wear and tear, and it's going to be hard to sustain that. So that might be where that's coming from, where you say they're starting to slack here these last few weeks.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That and the fact that there's more and more tape from your games this season, where I think a lot of opponents are like, okay, well, this team tried this to adjust, it didn't quite work. Then this team did this, and it worked more effectively. Getting into the games where these teams are losing, and it's like, what did these teams do that eventually caused them to lose the game? And I'm not saying that's the only reason that they lost, but also you can take those bits of information and put it all together. And there's so much, instantaneous media availability where you can see these games and watch them over and over and over, watch the tape, figure out how to tear it down, and then put it all together and effectively come up with a game plan. And I think that's what has happened to both of these teams.
Yeah. And the fact that Michigan State came back against Michigan, so that's going to weigh heavy on Michigan. And just like Florida State, I think when I said after that loss last week, are they going to just give up now, or are they going to power through? And we'll see, I think, this week with Michigan, whether or not – well, actually, Michigan looked way better against Penn State than I thought they would. They brought it. And I thought, I think I picked Penn State to win that one outright. And Michigan did way better than I thought they would. So seems like Michigan is responding well to that loss and making the committee look really smart once again, I think.
Well, having said that, they took a last-second touchdown to beat Penn State. I mean, right at the end of the game, like they were down. There's a couple minutes to go, and they were able to come back and got a pretty crazy touchdown that really was bad defense and bad tackling. So, I mean, it wasn't like they blew out Penn State either.
They didn't blow them out, but if you watch the game, it seemed like they controlled it a lot. Like Penn State had the Ohio State syndrome where they couldn't score in the red zone. They drove down several times, got a field goal the first one, didn't get any, came away with no points on their next trip. Like just Penn State, they had their struggles, but it seemed like Michigan controlled that game, and they just looked good. Considering I thought they were going to lose, I just thought they looked good, and they're worrisome this year. It's not going to be like last year where we score 1,000 points, I don't think. But Ryan Day, said he wanted to score 100 on Michigan last year because of some things Harbaugh said. So we'll see if that carries over to this year since they didn't play last year. But, yeah, just really excited about Ohio State. And honestly, I'm surprised they didn't jump in the college football playoff bracket just because I thought they looked better than every other team in the top 4.
Well, honestly, I think the reason
except Georgia.
Right. But I think the reason that's happening is the committee wants to make it interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have 2 ranked games coming up, and Oregon is playing Utah this week, which was ranked but low. And so I think they're trying to make it interesting, you know, something to talk about. Otherwise, it's just too easy. So I think that's just it's a rankings for media attention purposes.
Yeah. So let's talk Florida. Tim, last week we were laughing because we couldn't really find the Samford spread. It was like nobody really cared about this game. It was supposed to be a blowout.
No.
And now, I mean, it looks like a blowout. I mean, if you win by, what is it?
18. Win by 18.
It's a good mark, but not for Samford.
No, not for Samford. Not a 4-6 Samford team. So this game is a. So I want you to visualize. Okay. This is good, like, you know, like audio, like radio work. Visualize like your face split right down the middle, right? Like one side of the face is the offense, which looked really good against a really bad defense, and the other half is the defense, which did what our defense has trended towards this whole season of not playing well. You know, obviously at the end of our South Carolina loss, we let our defense coordinator go, and we promoted our linebackers coach, who is like 32 years old, young guy, over the special assistant to the head coach, who's coached in the NFL. He's coached college. He's like 140 years old, I think now. Just had a birthday, so he's like 140 now, and they decided to go with the young guy, which I think was a more inspirational type. Like, let's see what this guy has. What can we do with him moving forward? And it just didn't work. Like, it was not effective, obviously. So yeah, offensively, we scored 35 points in the first half, which is pretty good. Not great, but good. But we were playing catch up, and we allowed 42 points in the first half. Shipe, any idea when the last time that Florida has allowed 42 points in the first half? So imagine keep in mind, to anybody ever. Like, imagine we've played Peyton Manning at Tennessee. Like, we've played some good offenses, good quarterbacks. Do you want to take a guess on the last time we allowed 42 points to a BCS school, let alone a not BCS school?
BCS or like a non-power 5?
Anybody. I mean, anytime we've ever allowed 42 points.
42 points
in the first half.
I want to go back to like 2012, 2013. But I'm going to, because of the way you're saying it, I'm going to say 1979.
Florida has never given up 42 points and a half ever in the history of the program. In 130 whatever years, 150 years we've been in program, we have never given up 42 points and a half until this past Saturday against Samford. That's where we were. Ouch. That's where we got into. So we were down 42-35 at the half. Now, you know, a little bit of credit to our team. You look at their sideline, though, it looked like Samford had 22 players, period. Like, it looked like they had half as many people on the sideline as the Gators did, which is probably true.
Yeah.
And we wore them down in the second half, and we dominated. I don't think we gave a point in the third quarter, which is like, you know, small victories, I guess, at that point.
Yeah.
We outscored 21-0 in the third quarter, and then 14-10 in the fourth quarter. So we pretty much dominated the second half, but like, doesn't mean anything. That's not what matters.
Right.
And Mullen defended the team after the game, saying, you know, like, we should be excited that we got the win. Like, are you kidding me, Dan Mullen?
Yeah.
Like, that's the dumbest thing you could say. And a few weeks ago, you went from going to saying recruiting doesn't matter till the season is over. You know, he made comments about having to fire the defensive coordinator, but the reality is, according to my sources, who I won't name right now, but according to my sources, Dan Mullen did not fire the defensive coordinator. The athletic director did.
Oh, really?
And that it happened on Saturday night. And if Mullen would have done it, he would have done it Sunday after reviewing the tape and making some decisions. It was done before that happened. It was either late Saturday or early Sunday, and Mullen was not the one who made that call.
Wow. Your team is just in disarray right now.
It's in a bad spot. Defensive coordinator was fired. Offensive line coach was fired. And that was a good call, too. He's a terrible recruiter. He's not doing a good, effective job. And now we're at the point where Mullen's defending his team for winning a game against Stanford.
But honestly, it doesn't sound like it's really on the players. It sounds like this is on the coaches. So he should be defending his player. I mean, sounds like they're trying hard. I don't know.
Well, yes and no. Like he's also saying at halftime, like we've got to do better. Like our defense isn't, or our team isn't into it, and to a point, yes, we're missing a lot of tackles, leaving players open who now granted, Stanford has this one player, number 4, Washington, who was just unbelievable. Like, I don't know why he's playing this level. He should be D1. Like he looked like he was playing straight out of Alabama. Like he was just unbelievable. Wow. 10 receptions, 124 yards, and a touchdown. He also had a kickoff return for a touchdown, a rushing touchdown. The guy was just incredible. He was all over the field.
Yeah.
Had a great game. Regardless, like one guy shouldn't beat us, period. Like that's it. Like it's just no excuses. Like we did not play well in the first half. Second half played better. Did what we should have done against this team, but it's just there's no excuse. No SEC opponent or SEC team has ever given up this many points to a non-Power 5 school, period. Wow. That's it. Like there's no excuse. Like our defense played terrible. Some of our best players who should have stepped up and played well in this game just didn't. And what it comes down to for me is Mullen is just at this point, he is just sticking to what he wants. He's sticking to his loyalties, and it's backfiring, and he's not learning anything from it. He's not changing anything. Yeah. He's already come out and said Emory Jones is my guy for the rest of the year.
The rest of the season. I saw that. Yeah.
Which is for me a huge mistake because at this point we know what Emory Jones is. We know his ceiling, and he's not a terrible player. Right. But we see his ceiling. We see his limitations. We understand his absolute best. We have 2 games left against less than winning records. Why will we not give Richardson a chance at this point in the last 2? What do we have to lose? See what this guy has, give him a chance to get some reps, get some experience. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay. Give him a chance to learn, head into next season with the expectation of it's an open competition and whoever the best player is. But Mullen, year after year after year, has refused to do that. Yeah. And here's my prediction. So I know it's a little bit early for overreactions, but my prediction is that this mistake is going to cost Dan Mullen his job. He's going to learn from this experience, come back in 2 years, and he's going to be a really good coach somewhere. But this is not the place right now because I think he's a great coach. I really do. Like his X's and O's, he's very, very skilled, especially with quarterbacks. Everyone knows that's not a secret. Yeah. He's very good at this, but he's too loyal and he's not willing to make changes when it needs to happen. In between games, in game, he refuses to make the changes when it needs to happen, and it's going to cost him his job.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they pulled Lane Kiffin kind of thing on him, where they fired him at the airport after the next game or something. Like, I think he's overdue of being let go this season, and this should not be tolerated or accepted by Florida at this point. It just shouldn't be. No, you're too storied of a program. You're too good, and Florida is better than this, and they should act like it and let him go now.
I agree. I mean, our expectation should be if we aren't in the conference championship every single year, right? If we are not in the championship game for the SEC, then we have a failed season. And if we don't let him go at this point, I think that's sending the wrong message. Mm-hmm. And I understand it's painful and it puts recruiting classes back. But if we get the right hire, that's a key right now is finding the right person to take over. And I don't know who that is. And that's a constant argument I see is, well, who else is out there? Who's next? Who's next? And that doesn't change anything for me. The reality is, regardless of who else is out there, regardless of who we hire, he's not doing the job that we expect him to do. And so we don't fear for the future with a different person if you recognize the limitations. Like we're not South Carolina, we're not Kentucky. Like we're not satisfied with 3 or 4 losses a season. That's just not good enough.
Right.
And that's where we are. And that's not me being greedy. That's not me being like, well, I'm going to be too scared and cheapish to know what else is out there. Like, it doesn't matter. We'll find something else. Right. That's how we got Urban Meyer. It's like you've got to find the right fit, the right person, and just go with it.
And you got to pay for it, man.
Yeah.
You have to find the right guy and make a real investment. Yep. I think that's what Michigan State is. Mel Tucker. Yeah. That's what, from everything I've heard, Michigan State is going to give Mel Tucker basically whatever he wants to keep him because they're all in on football, and this is Florida's chance to show we're all in. We're not a basketball team. We're not a basketball school. Right. The football school, and we're all in on football, and they need to show it.
Well, and the new facilities are opening up next year,
Right.
so they have these state-of-the-art, high-tech, top 5 in the country facility for football only that's opening next year. And that there's a lot of pieces that go along with that. You can't just have a facility without the coach who's going to run it. And I mean, at this point, Mullen said, I don't like recruiting. Like he doesn't care about recruiting. He's made that clear.
Yeah.
And that's shown in his recruiting classes. They've been pretty good, but they're not as good as they could have been if they had the right people in place.
Yeah.
So you put all these pieces together, and that's just, it's a disaster. And at this point, it's time for him to go. And like I said, I believe 100% he'll be off for a year, maybe a coordinator or something, and he'll come back in a high level program, at least mid-level, and he'll make them really good because he's going to learn from his mistakes here and he's going to be better for it. But I think it's too late at this point. Even if he loses to Missouri or Florida State, he's done for sure. The only chance he has is if he makes some more changes and wins these last 2 games and gets a Poinsettia Bowl game, whatever, and we go from there. But I just think at this point, he's burned too many bridges. He said too many of the wrong things throughout the entire season, and I think it's just time to make a change.
Yeah, I agree. But the rankings came out this week, Tim, and Florida's not in them.
What?
Believe it or not, Florida is
sure?
not ranked in the top 25. They're not. I had to go to the SEC page on ESPN to even look and see who they're playing this week. It's rough.
Missouri. Yeah.
Yeah. And they might lose to Missouri. There's a real possibility there.
Well, they are on the road, and Missouri is 5-5. It's a joke.
They might lose. But yeah. Anyway.
It's going to be colder there, probably. It's probably colder in Missouri than it is in Florida.
Probably.
Tired of you guys, these Big Ten homers talking about how like the SEC doesn't travel up north. Look at Florida; they're going all the way to Missouri. It's
all the way.
46 degrees there right now, probably.
Yeah, but the rankings did come out, and the top 7 stayed the same. Do you agree? Disagree? Would you rearrange them? And if so, how?
Oh man, the rankings. I think the only thing I would probably change, and this is a pretty common thing, I think, is I'm big on the head-to-head. So I probably would have kept Michigan State ahead of Michigan.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I think I'm okay with it the way it is right now.
All right. Obviously, I think Alabama should be dropped out. But does it? We'll get to that in a second. And I think Cincinnati should drop a little bit lower. But the problem is, I don't know. What are you going to bump Wake Forest up, sitting at 10? You think they're better than them? You're going to bump up Notre Dame? Who's?
Right.
I don't know. It's such a strange year that it's hard to do this. If you're the committee, it's hard to go after, past 7. Where do you go from there? Yeah. Basically, with the only real change is Oklahoma dropped to 13 and everyone else behind them bumped up 1. Those are the only real changes to the playoff outlook. Here's a question I want for you, Tim. So let's play out the rest of the season, all the way till the SEC championship game, where everyone assumes it's going to be Alabama and Georgia, which all signs are pointing to that.
Yeah.
Alabama loses. Who do you bump ahead of them? Who is more deserving of that number 4 spot?
If Alabama loses to Georgia, and you're assuming everybody else wins out, obviously, except for Michigan and Michigan State can't.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Michigan State, we're going to assume that they're out of the top 10 even.
Yeah.
Do you bump someone like Notre Dame over Cincinnati? Do you even put Cincinnati in?
You have the head-to-head win Cincinnati over Notre Dame.
But they don't care about
I think
that.
That's the only way that Cincinnati gets in is if, and even then it's questionable because even then it could be Alabama drops number 4 ahead of Cincinnati.
Exactly.
And you keep Oregon, Ohio State in and Georgia.
Exactly. 2-loss Alabama, I think, is going to get in.
I don't think it would happen because I think it's Cincinnati. Too controversial, but I wouldn't be shocked if it did.
Yeah, I would not be shocked either. I think that's going to be the conversation leading into the playoff predictor. I think the teams in the top 3 will win out. I hope, knock on wood, with Ohio State. But I think the top 3 teams will win out. And then, well, obviously Alabama, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, and I'll say for Notre Dame,
4.
Notre Dame has virtually no chance unless the top teams fall apart because Notre Dame has 2 games left. They have no conference championship, obviously, because they're not in a conference. They have games against Georgia Tech and Stanford left, both 3-7 teams.
Yeah.
So they have virtually no chance unless those top 4 teams lose. Really would have to happen because Georgia can afford to lose a game and still get in.
Right. And that's
Nobody
what's
else.
happen.
Right. Yeah. So that's where I think Notre Dame has virtually no chance to be in this conversation. They're ranked 8th right now, and that's probably as high as they're going to go. Even as maybe top 5 as teams lose.
Yeah.
But they're not at this point. They have no shot of being in the playoff.
Yeah, I see. So this is my playoff predictor.
Okay.
Not my top 4, but this is my playoff predictor. Number 1. Oh man.
You had it. You were so confident.
I know,
right
I was. Number 1, Alabama. Number 2, Oregon. Number 3, Ohio State. 4, Georgia. I don't even know. Does Georgia even drop to 4 if they lose? Everyone thinks they're so great. If they lose to Alabama, do they even drop to 4? Or do they just go Alabama 1, Georgia 2, and then Oregon, Ohio State?
I think it depends on how it goes. If they lose by a field goal, and if Ohio State blows out Michigan State, blows out Michigan, and then blows out Minnesota or Wisconsin, or whoever they end up, Iowa, whoever they end up playing, those low-level conference championship teams, then if they blow them all out, then I think Ohio State has a chance to jump to number 2.
Yeah.
But even then, I'm not guaranteeing that. Georgia still probably be number 3, but they might make it number 4 just to make it interesting. Or number 3, if Alabama jumps to number 1, they may put them in number 3 just so they don't play each other, because I think they want to keep the SEC in as long as possible.
Well, and I think they want to push the Ohio State-Georgia game. So I think if, because everyone wants to see Ohio State's offense against Georgia's defense.
Yeah.
So I think if they put Georgia at 2, I think they bump Ohio State to 3 and drop Oregon. Let's play the spread game. I wish we had some music for it. Bum, bum, bum. Whatever. Spread game. Alabama, Georgia. What's your spread? Neutral site.
Neutral site, Alabama and Georgia. I think they're going to go Georgia -4.
Georgia -4?
Yeah.
Give the nod to Georgia?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, I agree with that. Oregon, Ohio State, round 2.
Round 2, I think they would go. I think neutral site this time, and the way the teams have developed over the year, I think they would go Ohio State -3.
Yeah, I would almost think Ohio State -10. Whoa. I think that's how high. That's how highly they think of them. Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't jumped them. But I think that's how highly they. I mean, look at the spread this week: Ohio State, Michigan State, almost a 20-point spread. Not the spoiler alert, whatever. And then Ohio State, Georgia. What's your spread?
Oh, I think it would be Georgia -9.
-9.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. I set this all up because what's the Georgia-Cincinnati spread?
Georgia-Cincinnati, I think it would be Georgia -22.
Okay. Alabama-Cincinnati spread.
-17.
Yeah. Oregon-Cincinnati?
That one I think would be a lot closer. I think that would be Oregon -5.
Ohio State?
Ohio State, Cincinnati?
Yeah.
It would be Ohio State -13.
Okay. Now here's one. Michigan, Cincinnati.
It would be Michigan -4.
Yeah. Michigan State, Cincinnati?
-5.
Michigan State?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my point, is that that's what I think. I honestly believe that Cincinnati is not a top 5, top 6, top 7 team. They're not. They would lose to everyone
they're undefeated
except Wake Forest in the top 10. And that's what I like about the committee, is that they don't care really,
except Notre Dame. I think Cincinnati would be favored against Notre Dame.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Cincinnati would be favored against Notre Dame. They'd be favored against Wake Forest. They are favored against Wake Forest. They actually play this week? No,
they don't play Wake Forest, do they?
I have to look.
No, Clemson plays Wake Forest.
Clemson plays Wake Forest. That's right. But yeah, they'd be favored against Wake Forest.
Yeah, Notre Dame wishes they had Wake Forest on the schedule. They've got garbage and they have no shot.
Right. I think I would take Texas A&M over Cincinnati right now.
Well, I don't know. Texas A&M's lost again.
I know. Would I take Arkansas over Cincinnati? Maybe. It'd be
Wisconsin,
close.
Wisconsin, Cincinnati. That'd be a fun game to watch right now.
That'd be a fun game. Yeah, that's where it should be. That's about where I think Cincinnati should be.
About 15?
About 15, 16 range.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I don't think they haven't done anything. They played up to Notre Dame at home, and they have done very little since then to show a lot, like, to earn respect.
Right. And I hate the argument, well, they've won. You win, you're in. And I know I was probably touting that with Ohio State back in the day when they didn't look great in like 18 or whatever. But Cincinnati.
But if you're not a Power 5 team, you don't get that. You don't get to
That's
say
exactly
that.
Right.
That's been proven in the past.
Yeah, you're exactly right. All right. Let's move on to our picks against this. No. Let's do our overreactions. I'm sorry, folks. Let's do some overreactions. Tim Jones. That was kind of my overreaction. Cincinnati, top 15 team.
Yeah, well,
Alabama.
Well, I kind of gave some of mine of just overreacting to the Florida situation, which I don't think is overreacting anymore. I think that's where we are.
Yeah.
Is Mullins got to go, and my overreaction is that he's going to get fired, and 2 or 3 years from now, we're going to see him at a pretty good program doing well. But it's because he's going to learn from his mistakes here, and he's going to do things differently, hopefully in the future for his sake, and it's going to go well for him. And I'm okay with that. I don't have any ill feelings towards him as a coach. He's a good coach. He's just not doing things the way that he needs to do it. Honestly, that's where we are, and it's not gonna. That's what it is.
Yeah, and it's crazy how fast things can change, isn't it? Last year he was the man. It's like he's going to take us to the next level. He's going to be the guy. And now, towards the end of this season, he's out the door. He should be out the door.
And in his defense, I guess, is we've lost obviously an elite quarterback that he stumbled onto, which is part of the frustration. Is he stumbled on him because he refused to acknowledge that the backup was better than the starter. That's where Felipe Franks was not very good.
Right.
He's an Emory Jones. Felipe Franks is Emory Jones. I said that at the beginning of the season. Do you recall that?
Yes.
That's where we are. And he refuses to acknowledge it. And because of a freak injury where Franks was out for the year, that's how we got into a position where we were actually good offensively. It's the only reason. And we've lost 7 receivers to the NFL in the last 2 years. That's a lot. That's a lot for any program to replace. And they've got decent receivers, but they replaced elite players. Last draft alone, they had a quarterback and 3 receivers go to the NFL. That's hard to replace. Like I said, in the last 2 years, we've had 7 receivers go to the NFL, who are still playing in the NFL, by the way. Yeah. And that matters. That does matter.
Right.
And so, you can only bail out your defense for so long. And that's been an issue for the last 2 seasons. And so, we were in a great place last year, but our defense was terrible.
I thought Mullen was a defensive coach. Am I wrong in that?
He's not at all. Offensive. Okay. Yeah, he's a quarterback guru, quarterback whisperer type guy. Okay. He was offensive coordinator at Florida back in the day. Okay. Coach Tebow, Coach Alex Smith, Dak Prescott. Obviously, that's his role. Yeah, he's an offensive guy, so he's always relied on somebody else to help his defense. But it's gotten worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. Urban Meyer was that way too. If he didn't have a good defensive coordinator, he was not going to do well.
And that's okay. It's knowing that's part of it, is knowing your weaknesses and finding the people that's part of leadership, right? And that's what it comes down to. Is Mullen's not a good leader. Yeah. He deflects. Nothing's his fault. He doesn't own anything himself. Right. It's always, well, this happened or that happened, or stop blaming my players. Like, we're blaming you. Own it. Right. That's where we are. Is like, we won this game. That's what he's trying to say against Stanford. Is like, are you serious? Like, that's unacceptable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Poor leadership.
Yeah. My overreaction is Texas will win 5 games in the SEC when they go. Texas is going to turn into Florida State in the SEC. Like Florida State, the ACC's version of Florida. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I got they will turn into a team that should have been that used to be good, has history, but now they're nothing.
Like, I would call it the Miami of the Miami of the SEC.
Could be,
because Miami hasn't done anything the last 20 years.
Right.
Since they went to ACC like 17 years ago, however many years ago, they've done nothing. But I understand exactly what you're saying, but I think that's a better comparison of what you're trying to say.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think this going to the SEC will destroy their program. They won't win for a long time because they're just not good. And they can't get back to the 2006 Texas team that they wish so badly they were. And
right. Yeah. And that, honestly, that's my fear for the Gators at this point is if we don't hire the next good coach, the next right coach, that could be us. Like that's a huge fear for me is like we were relevant last year and we're this quickly irrelevant. Like if we don't do the right things right now, that could be our program. You keep the wrong guy for too long, and that's how quickly it can change. But yeah, I don't think it's an overreaction. I think that's the expectation at this point. I think that Texas may be having some second thoughts about this decision to leave. It's too late now, but the money's there. That's why they're doing it. But I agree. It's gonna be a tough road for them.
Yeah, it's going to wreck their program. It's just they're gonna. I mean, depending on where they go. I mean, I imagine they'll be in the West, right? I mean, that would make sense. Yeah, would just make geographical sense. So they're gonna have to play Bama. They're gonna have to play. I don't know. Give me another West team. Help me.
Texas A&M, LSU.
Yeah, Texas
Auburn.
A&M, LSU. Yeah, Auburn. Yeah, they're gonna be in the tough side. So yeah, they're not gonna beat any of those teams. They wouldn't win any of them this year.
It's bad. Yeah,
it's bad.
All right. Well, my next overreaction is that I think that of all the teams this year, I wouldn't have expected this. Clemson is going to beat Wake Forest this weekend and be ranked for the first time since week 4, week 3,
something like that.
So Clemson is turning this around a little bit. They're 7-3 right now. They have. Obviously, they haven't played the toughest schedule in the world. Don't get me wrong, but they're kind of turning the ship riding the ship a little bit, and they're trying to build some momentum going into next season at this point. So don't be shocked if Clemson. You heard it here first, folks. Clemson will be ranked next week.
Okay. My last overreaction is that Georgia is not as good as what everyone thinks.
You take that back.
No, I cannot, Tim. They're not as good. And the reason they're not as good is because I really honestly don't believe they played anyone. I watched the game a little bit this weekend, and the commentator said that Tennessee is the best offense they've faced all year. Tennessee. It's the most they said it's the most.
Have you watched Tennessee this year? Honestly, no, I'm not even joking. I'm serious. Like Tennessee throughout the season has gotten better and better and better offensively. They are actually not once they get good, they're gonna be good. Like they have not been great this year, but they can score points.
Yeah, Tennessee, best offense. I mean, so anyway, let me go through their schedule real quick. The Georgia schedule.
Well, look at their scores. That's what I'm talking about.
Right, but tell me who they've played that's any good. Hold on, it's taking me a second.
Okay. Tennessee had the easiest schedule in the SEC. That's not what I'm questioning. I'm questioning the offense they played against Tennessee. Don't make it the same thing. It's not about who Georgia has played. It's that Tennessee's offense is better than you think. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and that's fine. But I mean, it's Tennessee. They've lost 5 games this season. So, is their offense playing bad defenses? I mean, they've won 5 games.
But they've scored 38. They've scored 34. They scored 56. They scored 14 against Florida was their worst game of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And then
they scored how good Florida's defense is.
Well, obviously we've seen them derail since then. That's true. Look at them against Alabama. You were there. Don't do that. That's true. They have fallen apart.
Alabama's not great.
Come on.
Nothing.
You saw how Florida played after the first quarter against Alabama, and since then they've gotten worse and worse and worse. They've had injuries. They've fallen apart. It's been terrible. But Tennessee scored 62, 45, 26, 24 against Alabama, 45, and then 41-17 they lost to Georgia this past weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So they can score points is what I'm trying to say. It's like this isn't trashing Georgia. That's a compliment to Tennessee.
Yeah. So let me go through Georgia's schedule real quick. Clemson, poo-poo. UAB, poo. South Carolina, sorry, Tim, but they're poo. Vanderbilt, poo. Arkansas, they're all right.
Mm-hmm.
They're not great, but they're all right.
Yeah.
Auburn, poo. Kentucky, mediocre. Florida, poo. Missouri, poo. Tennessee, poo. They've played maybe 2 good teams. And
I told you, the easiest schedule in the SEC.
Yeah, they're not great. And they're overrated. They're going to get in the college football playoff strictly because of the hype that they're getting, but they're not great. They're not. They're a good team. They're a good team, but they're not as good as what everyone says.
They're a good team.
That way, I'll put it that way. They're not as good as what everyone thinks.
They're a good team, and their defensive stats don't lie. They're defensively they're elite, and regardless of who you play, like they have shown consistency. The question is never about their defense; it's about their offense.
Right. But I can't wait for them to play in the playoffs because I think they'll lose to Ohio State. I think Ohio State takes down Georgia, and I think they do it by 17. I would put Ohio State winning by 17. That's what we're talking about right now, Tim.
I'm saying you're right. You're killing it with the overreaction.
All right. Any more?
I'll say this weekend's Ohio State Purdue game was less about Ohio State's talent as they're stepping up to the rumors that they were going to lose. So the fact that there were these whispers of this Purdue upsetting all these, big upsets against these big top ranked teams, Ohio State's like, oh, not this time. Right. So they overplayed against Purdue, and I think we're going to see a slight letdown against Michigan State.
Oh, does that lead into our picks against the spread, Tim?
Maybe.
Picks against the spread because Michigan State, Ohio State is the headliner this week. I think it's a big noon kickoff game.
It is. Yep.
And it's at the Horseshoe Senior Day at Ohio State. Tim, what's the spread?
It is Ohio State minus 19.
Okay. We're going to go through all of them, then I can make my picks at the end?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, we have that game. We have 21 Arkansas going to number 2 Alabama. Alabama at home favored by 21 points. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Florida traveling to Missouri. Florida on the road is favored by 8.5. 2 5-5 teams. Interesting spread.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have number 3 Oregon traveling to number 23 Utah. Utah at home favored by 3. This is one of those head scratchers. We've had a lot of these this year for us, where it's like, what do they know that we don't know?
And we only lost one.
Yeah, we've been good in these games.
We've been pretty good. We've missed on one. So, say that one to me again. I missed that. The
3 Oregon versus 23 Utah. Oregon favored by, Utah minus 3 at home.
And it's at Utah.
At Utah. Okay. Also, we should have mentioned going into this, we didn't do a catch up on last week. Had a last week. So last week we both picked Purdue to cover against Ohio State. We both were wrong.
Yep.
We both picked Florida to cover against Stanford. We were both wrong, and I almost didn't pick that one. I regretted that one.
Yeah.
We had Oklahoma and Baylor. You took Baylor. I took Oklahoma. Obviously, you won that one. Mississippi State, Auburn. Auburn was up 28-7. Blew it.
Mm-hmm.
You covered on that one.
Yeah.
Actually, you won outright on that one. So you took, and then I took Wake Forest minus 2 and covered there. So you were up 2 coming in. Now you're up by 3, which is a few weeks left to go. We have 2 weeks in the conference championship. We have 3 weeks left to go.
Yeah.
Just don't blow it. That's what it comes down to. You just can't blow it.
I know. And I might. What was the Arkansas-Alabama spread this week?
Arkansas was minus 21 Alabama.
Alabama's favored by 21.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Week 1. Let's do it.
Week 1.
Well, game 1.
Game 1. Okay. So, number 7, Michigan State traveling to number 4, Ohio State. Ohio State minus 19 at home.
Give me Ohio State on this one. It's a leap.
I'm taking Michigan.
Yeah. It's a leap for me, obviously, because 19 is a ton against a team like this. But Michigan State's biggest weakness is their defensive backs and their passing game, and Ohio State's greatest strength is their passing game. And I get why you took it down the run. I think we're going to shut it down.
I'm just expecting Ohio State to win by 17, so Michigan State covers. So I win there. All right, number 21 Arkansas, number 2 Alabama. I'll go first here if you want.
Yeah.
I'm taking Arkansas to cover but lose.
Yeah. I'm going to do the same.
You would. I'm sure. All right. Then we have Florida traveling to Missouri. Missouri 8.5 underdogs at home. I'm going to take Missouri to cover.
I'm taking Missouri on that one too.
Dang it. All right. And then number 3, Oregon against number 23, Utah. Utah 3-point favorites at home.
Oregon.
I'm going to take Utah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. I actually am picking them. I didn't want to say anything earlier as an overreaction, but I actually am anticipating Utah to upset Oregon at home. It's been such a weird year.
In Vegas.
And I think Oregon has had these weird up and down games this year. The loss to Stanford still leaves a bad taste in my mouth, and I just think that they are poised for a really big upset right here.
Yeah. So we're different on 3, and that's all you need.
2. We have I took Michigan. We both took Arkansas.
Right.
We both took Missouri, and I took Utah.
Yeah.
So
no matter what, I'm still going to be up going into the final week of the season. And do we do conference play championship games?
Yeah, we do conference championship as the last round. So we have next week and the following week, and that's it. We have 2 more weeks after this.
All right. So at a minimum, I'll have a 1-point lead going into the last 2 weeks.
We're up to as many as 5.
Let's go. I need this. I want a new jersey. Mine's getting all ratty.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, I think I want number 7, Stroud. Well, does he get beaten out by Quinn Ewers during the offseason?
You have 3 more weeks to figure this out. Don't rush.
But I can get a name on the back of it this year. I can get like a.
But don't rush it. You have 3 weeks to decide. Don't decide today.
I could do Jackson Smith and Jigba, number was that 11? I think. He'll be around for a while.
Is anybody else as excited as I'm going to be when I end up pulling this off out there? I mean, you all know, like, come on, like I know you feel it.
Oh, I'm so excited! All right, final thoughts, Tim Jones. What are we missing? What didn't we talk about? Anything you want to add to the show before we wrap it up?
I need to be a little transparent here right now.
Oh,
I have a ticket to the Florida State-Florida game, and I'm a little nervous.
You should.
I wasn't when I got the ticket. I am now. Just a little nervous, not too nervous, but a little nervous. Like we got to pull it out versus Missouri just to get back on track.
Yeah. It's not quite paradise, but you got 2 tickets to somewhere. You get it?
Somewhere warm and sunny and not Ohio.
And on that terrible joke and note, we're going to wrap things up. Thank you all so much for joining us. Give us a like, follow, comment on Instagram and Twitter. I'm actually on Twitter more these days, so give us a follow on there because I post some okay stuff throughout the week. So you should give us a follow on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Check us out. Give us a comment and give us some stars on iTunes.